The emergency alarm echoed through the corridors of Unity Nexus Station, a sound that had not been heard in over 300 years. Ambassador Velthar of the Kryn Collective rushed through the wide hallways, his forearms clutching data tablets as his chitinous legs clicked rapidly against the polished floor. Other representatives were converging on the Grand Chamber from every direction, their various forms of movement creating a chaotic symphony of concern. The massive doors to the Grand Chamber slid open with a hiss that seemed to carry the weight of history. Inside, the circular room was already filled with representatives from 47 different species, each in their designated environmental zones. The air shimmered where atmosphere barriers met, creating a rainbow effect that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, nobody noticed. Velthar took his position at the Kryn designated area and immediately accessed the central data stream. What he saw made his secondary heart skip several beats. Every single human communication channel was dead. Not just quiet or reduced, completely silent. Every embassy, every diplomatic station, every human envoy across the entire galaxy had gone dark simultaneously exactly 47 hours ago. The High Chancellor, a floating Etherian named Zixola, materialized at the center of the chamber. Her translucent form pulsed with agitated colors that everyone present could read as deep concern. She spoke through the Universal Translator Network, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. Representatives of the Galactic Council, we face an unprecedented situation. The human species has ceased all diplomatic communication. Every human representative has withdrawn. Every embassy has been evacuated. Every communication channel has been closed. We have received no explanation, no warning, and no response to our inquiries. A wave of concerned sounds rippled through the chamber. The Draxan representative, General Krathix, slammed a massive fist on his console. His species was known for direct action and little patience. This is clearly an act of aggression, Krathix growled, his translation carrying the rumble of barely contained fury. The humans are preparing for war. We should mobilize our fleets immediately and demand they open their borders. Several other representatives voiced agreement, but Velthar felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. He had worked with humans for nearly 60 years. He knew them better than most in this chamber. This did not feel like preparation for war. This felt like something else entirely, something worse. Dr. Mira then, the Yaran xenopsychologist, activated her speaking platform. Her small, bird-like form seemed fragile compared to many in the chamber, but her voice carried authority earned through decades of study. With respect, General, I believe you are mistaken. My analysis of human behavioral patterns suggests this is not aggression. This is abandonment. The humans have left us. The chamber erupted in disbelief and argument. The Orion Consortium representative, a merchant prince named Velkos, spoke over the noise. Impossible. The humans need our trade routes. They need our resources. They need access to council-controlled space. They cannot simply leave. Their economy would collapse within months. Velthar accessed his private files and brought up the data he had been reviewing before the emergency session. His hands trembled slightly as he requested speaking permission. When the High Chancellor acknowledged him, he shared his findings with the entire chamber. Fellow representatives, I have been monitoring human activities for the past standard year. I believed I was observing normal colonial management and fleet exercises. Now, reviewing this data with our current situation in mind, I see something different. He brought up holographic displays showing shipping manifests and population movements. Over the past 18 months, humans have been quietly recalling their citizens from mixed-species colonies. They have been consolidating their merchant fleets. They have been stockpiling resources in Sol System and their core colonies. He zoomed in on financial data. They have been systematically divesting from joint ventures and converting alien currency reserves back to human credits. Representatives, this was not sudden. The humans have been planning this withdrawal for at least 2 years. Possibly longer. The chamber fell silent. This information changed everything. Velkos pulled up economic projections and his skin turned a pale shade that indicated shock among his people. If the humans have been preparing for this long, then they have solutions to every dependency we assumed would keep them engaged. They have alternative trade routes. They have stockpiled resources. They have... He trailed off, his voice weak. They do not need us at all, do they? Dr. Mira then spoke again, her tone grave. What concerns me more is the psychological implication. For a species as social and diplomatic as humans to collectively agree to complete isolation requires either an external threat of extraordinary magnitude or an internal decision of equally extraordinary conviction. Given that we have detected no external threat, we must consider the second possibility. The humans have decided as an entire species that continued diplomatic engagement with the Galactic Council is not in their interest. General Krathik scoffed. Ridiculous. No species makes such decisions unanimously. There must be a faction we can negotiate with. There must be dissenters. But even as he spoke, intelligence reports were being distributed to all representatives. Velthar read through them with growing dread. Human colonies across the galaxy were evacuating, not fleeing in panic but moving with organized precision. Ships were returning to Sol system in orderly convoys. Human citizens on alien worlds were selling their properties, terminating their contracts and booking passage home. A Valorian intelligence officer named Jigsaw requested emergency speaking privileges. His report made the situation even more alarming. High Chancellor, my service has been monitoring the Sol system border. The humans have erected what we initially believed to be a defensive perimeter. However, our analysis suggests something far more comprehensive. They have deployed thousands of autonomous defense stations in a sphere around their entire system. These stations do not hail approaching vessels. They do not issue warnings. Our probes were destroyed instantly upon crossing the boundary, with such precision and speed that our analysts believe the response time is measured in microseconds. He displayed tactical data that made several military representatives in the chamber shift uncomfortably. The technology demonstrated by these defense stations is significantly more advanced than anything the humans have shared with the Council. They have been holding back their true capabilities. Additionally, long-range scans show massive construction projects throughout the Sol system. Energy signatures are unprecedented. We cannot determine their purpose, but the scale suggests projects that would require the entire industrial capacity of their civilization. The High Chancellor's form flickered through several colors before settling on a deep blue that indicated she was initiating formal inquiry mode. Does anyone present know what could have triggered this response? Has any species had recent conflicts with humanity that might explain this? For several minutes, representatives checked their records and consulted with their aides. Finally, a pattern began to emerge. Not a single dramatic incident, but a collection of small things. The Zeltron ambassador had made jokes about human emotional weaknesses at a public gathering 3 months ago. The Orion Consortium had pushed through trade regulations that specifically disadvantaged human agricultural exports. The Draxan hegemony had blocked human applications for Security Council positions for the 17th consecutive cycle. The Kryn Collective, Velthar's own people, had voted against human colonization rights in the Theta sector. Individually, these were minor diplomatic friction points. Collectively, they painted a picture that made Velthar feel sick. He raised a hand for permission to speak. High Chancellor, I believe we have been making a critical error for over 2 centuries. We have treated humanity as junior partners in the galactic community. Despite their contributions, despite their capabilities, despite their consistent aid to other species, we have never truly accepted them as equals. We have appreciated their usefulness while dismissing their concerns. We have benefited from their generosity while mocking their emotional nature. We have relied on their protection while plotting to contain their expansion. Several representatives began to protest, but Velthar continued, his voice rising. I am guilty of this as well. I have worked with humans for 60 years and I have called many of them friends. Yet when votes came before this council, I prioritized my species' immediate interests over the legitimate concerns of our human allies. I assumed they would accept our decisions because they always had before. I assumed their patience and goodwill were infinite resources we could draw upon without cost. The chamber was silent now. Velthar accessed one final file, the last official communication from humanity. It had been delivered by Ambassador Sarah Chen, humanity's senior representative, exactly 47 hours ago. Velthar had read it then and dismissed it as frustrated rhetoric. Now he understood it as a farewell. We're done talking. Those 4 words were the entirety of humanity's final message to the Galactic Council. No explanation, no list of grievances, no ultimatum, just a simple statement of fact. The humans were done talking. Dr. Mira then pulled up historical data on her display. I have been studying human history, and I have found a concerning pattern. Throughout their development, humans have repeatedly engaged in what they call isolationism, when their attempts at cooperation or diplomacy are repeatedly rebuffed or betrayed. They withdraw. They close their borders, they focus internally, and they emerge changed. The humans who re-emerge from these periods are often more powerful, more unified, and less willing to compromise. If we do not understand what has happened and why, we may find ourselves facing a humanity that no longer seeks our approval or our friendship. The High Chancellor pulsed a deep red, a color that indicated she was moving to crisis protocols. We will establish a task force to investigate this situation and determine how to proceed. In the meantime, all representatives are instructed to compile complete records of all interactions with humanity over the past 10 cycles. We need to understand what we did wrong and how we can repair this relationship. But as Velthar left the chamber, he could not shake the feeling that it was already too late. The humans had not stormed out in anger. They had not issued threats or demands. They had simply left with the quiet finality of someone who has made a decision they will not reconsider. In his private quarters that night, Velthar reviewed footage from various human colonies. In every case, the evacuation was orderly, efficient, and complete. Humans were saying goodbye to alien neighbors they had lived beside for decades. Some goodbyes were tearful, some were cordial, but all carried the same message. This was not temporary. One recording caught his attention. A human teacher at a mixed-species school on Tylon 4 was addressing her students one last time. Many of the young aliens were crying, confused about why their favorite teacher was leaving. "I want you all to know that I loved teaching you," the human woman said, her own eyes wet with tears. "You are brilliant, kind, and full of potential. Never forget that. But I need to go home now. My people need me and we need each other. Maybe someday when you're all grown up, things will be different. I hope so, I really do." Velthar turned off the recording. He understood now. The humans had not given up on individuals. They had given up on the system. They had given up on the Galactic Council's ability or willingness to treat them as true partners, rather than useful subordinates. As he drifted into an uneasy sleep, Velthar wondered what humanity was building in their isolation. More importantly, he wondered what kind of humanity would emerge when and if they ever chose to re-engage with the galaxy. Whatever came next, he knew one thing with certainty: the galaxy had just lost something precious, and it had been entirely the Council's fault. As the ship retreated at maximum speed, putting distance between themselves and the Sol system, Jigsaw watched the tactical display with growing understanding. The targeting locks remained active, tracking their ship with perfect accuracy, but no weapons discharged. The humans could have destroyed them easily. Instead, they sent a message more powerful than any attack. "We see you, we can reach you, but we choose not to." This time. Once they reached safe distance, Jigsaw ordered the crew to compile all their data for immediate transmission to the Council. As they worked, Ensign Vexel made one more discovery. "Commander, I found something in the deep scan data. Before we were detected, I managed to get a detailed scan of one of the cylindrical structures. Sir, there are people inside. Millions of them. These aren't weapons or industrial facilities. They're habitats. The humans are building enormous space habitats throughout their system." Jigsaw felt understanding dawn. They're not preparing to hide from the galaxy. They're preparing to thrive without it. Those cylinders are colony ships or permanent habitats. They're expanding their civilization entirely within their own system, making themselves completely self-sufficient. The implications were staggering. If humans could build sustainable habitats on this scale, they did not need planets in Council space. They did not need trade routes maintained by Council members. They did not need anything the galaxy offered. The journey back to Unity Nexus took 4 days. During that time, Jigsaw reviewed the data repeatedly, each time finding new details that deepened his concern. The humans had not simply withdrawn. They had transformed their entire civilization into something new, something that no longer needed or wanted the galactic community. When he arrived at Unity Nexus and presented his findings to the Council emergency session, the reaction was everything he expected and feared. Some representatives dismissed the data as incomplete. Others argued about what it meant. General Krathix insisted it proved humans were preparing for war. The Orion Consortium representatives immediately began calculating the economic impact, of a permanently isolated humanity. But it was Dr. Miradhen's analysis that cut through the debate and forced the council to face reality. Fellow representatives, Commander Zixoth's data confirms my worst fears. Humanity has entered one of their historical isolation periods, but this time they have the technology and resources to make it permanent. The synchronized singing he recorded is particularly significant. It demonstrates a level of social cohesion that should be impossible for a species of 8 billion individuals spread across an entire star system. She brought up comparative data on her display. Throughout human history, their greatest achievements came when they were unified by a common purpose. The space age began when they united to explore their moon. Their medical revolution came when they united to cure diseases. Their environmental restoration came when they united to heal their planet. Now they have united to leave us behind, and we should be very concerned about what they will achieve. Ambassador Velthar spoke from his position. Dr. Miradhen, in your professional opinion, is there any action we can take to reverse this decision? Any diplomatic approach that might bring them back to the council? The xenopsychologist was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, I believe we are asking the wrong question. The humans have not made this decision lightly or rashly. They have planned it for years, possibly decades. They have evaluated every aspect of their relationship with the council and found it wanting. The question is not whether we can convince them to return. The question is whether we deserve to have them return. The chamber fell silent. It was an uncomfortable truth that many representatives did not want to acknowledge. Velthar accessed his console and pulled up records from the past 2 centuries. I have been reviewing our interactions with humanity since first contact. In that time, they have defended 17 species from aggression. They have shared medical technology that saved billions of lives. They have mediated 42 conflicts. They have contributed 37% of the Council's operational budget, despite representing only 8% of the membership, and in return we have blocked their expansion, dismissed their concerns, mocked their emotions, and treated them as useful but inferior partners. He looked around the chamber. The humans did not leave because we committed some great offense. They left because we committed thousands of small ones year after year, until they finally decided we would never change. And they were right. High Chancellor Zixola pulsed through several colors before settling on a determined orange. Regardless of how we arrived at this situation, we must deal with the reality before us. Commander Zixoth, your recommendation? Zixoth stood at attention. High Chancellor, my recommendation is that we do not attempt any further reconnaissance missions. The humans allowed us to leave this time, but I do not believe they will be as generous if we continue to probe their borders. We should respect their request for isolation and hope that time will provide an opportunity for reconciliation. Unacceptable, General Krathix roared. We cannot allow a species to simply leave the Council. It sets a dangerous precedent. General, Zixoth replied calmly, they already have left. The question is not whether we allow it. The question is whether we accept it peacefully, or force them to defend their decision with violence. Based on the technology they demonstrated, I strongly advise the former. The debate continued for hours, but Zixoth knew the outcome was inevitable. The Council had no real options. They could not force humanity to return, could not breach their defenses, and could not survive without eventually adapting to this new reality. As he left the chamber, Zixoth found himself thinking about the singing he had recorded. Millions of human voices unified in purpose, creating something beautiful. Even as they rejected the galaxy that had failed to appreciate them, he wondered what they were singing about. He wondered if he would ever know. Most of all, he wondered if the galaxy would survive what came next. 6 months had passed since humanity's silence began. Ambassador Velthar sat in his private office aboard Unity Nexus, reviewing reports that painted an increasingly grim picture of the galactic situation. On his main display, a newsfeed showed footage from the Corvin sector where 3 colonies were being evacuated due to pirate raids. In the corner of his screen, economic projections showed declining trade volumes across major routes. Everything was slowly falling apart. A soft chime indicated an incoming visitor. Velthar looked up to see Dr. Miradhen entering his office, her small frame somehow carrying the weight of the galaxy's problems. She settled onto the perch designed for her species and activated her personal datapad. Ambassador, I wanted to discuss my latest findings before presenting them to the full council. What I have discovered is not easy to hear, but it is necessary. Velthar gestured for her to continue. Over the past months, he had come to deeply respect the xenopsychologist's insights. She had been right about everything so far. I have been conducting a comprehensive analysis of humanity's contributions to the galactic community. The results are devastating. When the humans withdrew, they took with them the foundation of our modern stability. She displayed a series of graphs and charts. Let me show you what we have lost. The first chart showed military deployments. For the past 140 years, human peacekeeping forces have been stationed in 32 conflict zones across the galaxy. These forces were not there by council mandate, but by voluntary human commitment. They believed in maintaining peace. In the 6 months since their withdrawal, violence has increased by 67% in these regions. The Korthian Empire has already seized 4 systems that human peacekeepers previously defended. Velthar felt sick, but he remained silent as she continued. Trade routes. The humans maintained patrol and security operations along 17 major trade corridors. They did this at their own expense, asking nothing in return except passage rights. Since their withdrawal, piracy has increased by 400% along these routes. The Orion Consortium has lost 38 cargo vessels in the last month alone. Another chart appeared. Medical technology. Humanity provided advanced medical treatments to 73 species, including cures for diseases that were previously fatal. They charged only the cost of production, not market rates. They did this because they believed healthcare was a right, not a commodity. Now those treatments are only available through the Orion Consortium at prices that most species cannot afford. Billions will die from preventable diseases because humans are no longer sharing their knowledge. Dr. Mirathen's voice grew quieter, but more intense. Technology transfer. The humans shared innovations freely with any species that asked. Fusion reactor designs, water purification systems, agricultural techniques, computational algorithms. They gave these away because they believed a rising tide lifts all boats. Now technological progress across the galaxy has slowed to a crawl. Education and cultural exchange. Over 2 million human teachers, artists, and cultural ambassadors worked throughout the galaxy, often in remote or poor regions where no other species would go. They taught not just human knowledge, but fostered understanding between species. They are gone now, and the gap they left is immeasurable. Velthar studied the data with growing horror. Why did we never realize how much we depended on them? Because they never asked for recognition, Dr. Mira then replied. Humans did these things not for gratitude or political advantage, but because their culture values helping others. They believed they were part of a galactic community, where everyone contributed according to their abilities. We took their contributions for granted because they never stopped giving, even when we gave nothing in return. She pulled up one final document. This is what truly concerns me. I have obtained a copy of a classified council memorandum from 12 years ago. It was circulated among 47 member species, but never shared with humanity. I want you to read it. Velthar opened the document and felt his blood run cold as he read. It was titled Strategic Assessment Managing Human Expansion. The contents were damning. Multiple species had agreed that humanity's growing influence needed to be contained. They had formed a secret coalition to vote against human interests, limit their territorial expansion, and keep them in a position of service rather than leadership. They knew. Velthar whispered. The humans discovered this. Yes. Their intelligence services are far more capable than we ever realized. They knew we were actively working to keep them subordinate. And they made a collective decision that if we saw them as tools rather than partners, they would no longer participate in the system. Dr. Mira then pulled up footage from various human colonies during the evacuation. Watch how they left. Every human said goodbye to their alien neighbors. Many gave away possessions they could not take with them. They explained to confused alien children why they had to go. They did not leave in anger or hatred. They left in disappointment. That ambassador is far worse. Before Velthar could respond, an urgent alert flashed across his screen. He opened it and felt his blood freeze. There has been an incident. General Krathix has taken matters into his own hands. They rushed to the emergency session already underway in the Grand Chamber. The scene was chaos. Representatives were arguing, shouting, and demanding answers. At the center of it all, General Krathix stood at his console, his massive form radiating defiance. I did what was necessary, the Draxan general bellowed. The humans have defied the council for too long. I sent a battle fleet to the Sol system with a simple message. Open your borders or face the consequences. It is time they learned that the Council's authority is absolute. Velthar felt his legs go weak. What have you done? High Chancellor Zixola's form flashed angry red. General Krathix, you had no authorization for this action. Recall your fleet immediately. It is too late for that, Krathix replied. They have already engaged the human defense perimeter. We will have our answer soon. The chamber fell silent. Every representative accessed the tactical feed from the Draxan fleet. 12 heavy warships, the pride of the Draxan military, approached the Sol system boundary. The fleet commander issued a broad-spectrum broadcast demanding humanity stand down and allow Council inspectors to enter their territory. The humans did not respond with words. Velthar watched in horror as the tactical display updated. The defense stations that Commander Zixoth had reported activated with terrible precision. Weapons fire lanced out from multiple directions, coordinated with inhuman accuracy. The Draxan shields held for approximately 3 seconds. Then they failed. Then the ships began to die. It was not a battle. It was an execution. 12 warships, each capable of defeating a small fleet, were torn apart in less than 2 minutes. The humans used weapons that no one in the Council chamber recognized. Energy beams that seemed to phase through shields. Projectiles that accelerated to impossible speeds. Missiles that anticipated evasive maneuvers before they were made. When it was over, 12,000 Draxan warriors were dead. The tactical feed showed nothing but debris and the cold silence of space. The human defense stations returned to passive status as if nothing had happened. General Krathix stared at the displays, his defiance replaced by shock. That is impossible. Those were our best ships, our most advanced technology. How did they? They have been holding back, Velthar said quietly. For 2 centuries, they have been holding back their true capabilities. We never saw their real strength because they never needed to use it. They protected us with a fraction of their power, and we mistook their restraint for weakness. Dr. Mira then was reviewing the weapon signatures. These technologies are decades ahead of anything in the Council database. The humans did not just withdraw. They have been preparing for this scenario for years. Every time they shared technology with us, they held back the most advanced systems. Every time they demonstrated military capability, they showed us only what they wanted us to see. High Chancellor Zixola addressed the chamber, her voice heavy with the weight of realization. The humans never needed our permission to expand. They never needed our trade routes or our resources. They never needed our protection or our approval. They participated in the Council because they believed in cooperation and diplomacy. We have just learned what happens when they stop believing in those things. Over the next hours, the full scope of the disaster became clear. The Draxan Empire was demanding retribution. Several other militaristic species were calling for mobilization, but the military analysts who reviewed the engagement footage all came to the same conclusion. Any attack on Sol system would be suicide. Velthar worked through the night, trying to formulate some kind of response that would not make the situation worse. Near dawn, he received an unexpected communication. A human signal, the first in 7 months, but it was not directed at the Council. It was a public broadcast, transmitted on open channels that every species could receive. The message was short and delivered by a simple audio recording. The voice was female, calm, and carried absolute conviction. To all species of the galactic community, humanity does not seek war. We seek only to be left alone. The Draxan attack on our home has been repelled. We took no pleasure in the deaths that resulted, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves. This is your only warning. Sol system is closed. Any ship that crosses our boundary will be destroyed. Any attack will be answered with overwhelming force. We wish you peace and prosperity, but we will achieve ours without you. Do not contact us. Do not approach us. Do not test our resolve. This message will not be repeated. The broadcast ended. In its wake, the galaxy had to confront an uncomfortable truth. Humanity had not just left the Council. They had left the entire galactic civilization behind, and they had the power to enforce that decision. Within days, other consequences of humanity's withdrawal became impossible to ignore. The Scourge, a parasitic hive species that existed at the galaxy's edge, began expanding into territories they had not touched in decades. Velthar pulled up the historical records and understood why. For 70 years, human deep space monitoring stations had tracked Scourge movements and coordinated containment efforts. The humans had been the primary force keeping the scourge contained, and no one else had even known they were doing it. The Yaran Confederacy, a peaceful species whose worlds bordered scourge space, sent desperate messages to Unity Nexus. 3 of their colonies had been attacked. Millions were dying. They needed help. And the only species with the technology and will to fight the scourge was locked behind an impenetrable barrier of their own making. Velthar joined other representatives in crafting appeals to humanity. They broadcast messages acknowledging past mistakes. They offered apologies. They begged for help. The humans received every message. They responded to none of them. Instead, they acted. Human warships appeared at the Yaran colonies under attack. They engaged the scourge with brutal efficiency, driving the hive ships back and destroying them completely. Then, without any communication with Yaran authorities or the Council, the human ships vanished back into the depths of space. Dr. Mira then analyzed the engagement footage with tears in her eyes. Do you see what they are doing? They are still protecting those who need protection. They are still acting according to their moral code. But they are doing it on their terms without asking our permission and without accepting our gratitude. They have become exactly what we always feared. Powerful, independent, and beyond our control. Velthar watched the footage of human ships jumping away, leaving behind saved Yaran colonists who waved frantically at the departing vessels. No, he said softly. They have become what they always were. We were just too blind to see it. They were never tools for us to use. They were partners we failed to value. And now they are strangers who remember us but no longer trust us enough to stand beside us. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humanity had not been the junior partner in galactic civilization. They had been the foundation. And without that foundation, everything was beginning to crumble. 3 years had passed since humanity's withdrawal, and the galaxy had learned to navigate a new reality. Ambassador Velthar stood at the observation window of Unity Nexus, watching ships come and go from the station's docking ports. The traffic was noticeably lighter than it had been 4 years ago. Many routes were no longer safe without human protection. Many trade agreements had collapsed without human mediation. The golden age of galactic cooperation was over, and everyone knew it. Behind him, the Grand Chamber was in session, but Velthar had stepped out to collect his thoughts. The topic of today's emergency meeting was the same as it had been for hundreds of sessions over the past 3 years. The human question. How to respond to their absence. How to adapt to the gap they left. How to survive without them. The economic news was universally grim. The Orion Consortium had lost 40% of its trade revenue. The Yaran Confederacy was struggling to defend its borders. The Kryn Collective, Velthar's own people, had seen technological progress stagnate without access to human innovations. Everywhere the story was the same. Life was harder, more dangerous, and more expensive without humanity's quiet contributions. But that was not the worst of it. The worst was watching the slow fracturing of the Council itself. Velthar returned to the chamber as Dr. Mira then was presenting her latest analysis. The xenopsychologist looked older now, worn down by years of watching her predictions come true. Representatives, the social cohesion of the Galactic Council has declined by measurable metrics every quarter for the past 3 years. Without human mediation, old conflicts are reigniting. Without human peacekeepers, aggressive species are expanding unchecked. Without human aid programs, poor worlds are falling into chaos. The Council is not collapsing suddenly, but it is dying slowly. General Krathix, diminished in influence since his disastrous attack but still present, spoke from his position. Then we must force the humans to return. We must make them understand they have responsibilities to the galactic community. With what leverage? Asked Velkos of the Orion Consortium. With what power? Every military analysis concludes the same thing. Humanity possesses technology decades or centuries ahead of our own. They prove they can defend themselves. They prove they do not need us. We have nothing they want and nothing they fear. High Chancellor Zixola pulsed through colors indicating deep concern. There must be some approach we have not tried. Some appeal that will reach them. They are not a cruel species. They are not vindictive. There must be a way. Velthar requested permission to speak. High Chancellor, fellow representatives, I believe we continue to make the same mistake we have made from the beginning. We are asking what we can do to bring humanity back. We should be asking what we can do to deserve their return. He displayed data on the chamber's central screens. In the 3 years since humanity withdrew, how many species have stopped the practices they engage in that humans found objectionable? How many have reformed their governments to respect individual rights as humans advocated? How many have implemented the ethical standards humans tried to promote? The answer is 0. We miss the benefits of human participation, but we have done nothing to address the reasons they left. You expect us to fundamentally restructure our societies because one species had hurt feelings? General Krathix demanded. No, General. I expect nothing. I am simply observing that we want humanity to return to a system they found unjust, without making that system any less unjust. We want them to go back to being our junior partners, our useful tools, our convenient problem solvers. We have learned nothing. The debate continued, circular and pointless as it had been for 3 years. Velthar eventually excused himself and returned to his office. He had more important work to do, work he had been conducting quietly for months. He opened a secure channel to a contact he had been cultivating, a Valorian information broker who claimed to have maintained sources inside the Sol system. The broker, a female named Silix, appeared on his screen. Ambassador, I have the information you requested. It was not easy to obtain and it was very expensive. I will pay whatever you ask. What have you learned about humanity's activities? Silix transmitted a data package. The humans are not simply surviving in isolation, Ambassador. They are thriving. The construction projects your commander Zixoth observed 3 years ago have been completed. They are massive habitat cylinders, each capable of supporting 10 million humans in Earth-like conditions. They have built 147 of these structures throughout their system. Velthar did the mathematics quickly. That is enough to house every human in the galaxy with room for expansion. They never planned to return to planets outside Sol. They planned to bring their entire population home and house them in artificial habitats. Correct. But there is more. The humans have also completed what my sources call the Genesis Project. They are terraforming Mars and several moons of Jupiter and Saturn simultaneously. Within a century, their system will have multiple Earth-like worlds. They are creating their own Garden of Eden, and they are doing it without any resources from the rest of the galaxy. The broker continued. My sources also report massive advances in technology. The humans are no longer sharing their research with anyone, which means they are advancing at their own pace without holding back. Conservative estimates suggest they are now 50 to 75 years ahead of the Council in most fields. In some areas, like artificial intelligence and genetic engineering, they may be a century ahead. Velthar absorbed this information with a heavy heart. What about their society? How are they doing culturally? That is perhaps most interesting. My sources report that humanity has achieved something remarkable. They have united under a single purpose in a way that has never been seen before. There are no nations anymore, no competing factions, no internal conflicts. They are operating as a single organism with 8 billion minds. They call it the Harmony. Is it some kind of hive mind? Are they being controlled? No, Ambassador. Each human remains an individual. They simply have chosen to work together with complete cooperation. My sources say it is like watching a perfectly choreographed dance performed by an entire species. They achieved this through a combination of advanced neural interfaces and what they call a shared consciousness framework. Every human can feel the emotions and intentions of every other human, creating a society with perfect transparency and trust. Velthar felt a chill. They have created a utopia. They have achieved what every species dreams of. Perfect social harmony, unlimited resources, advanced technology, and complete security. They have built paradise and they did it without us. In fact, they did it because of us. There is one more thing, Silix added. My sources report that humanity is not planning to remain in Sol forever. They are building ships, not warships, though they have plenty of those. They are building exploration vessels designed for journeys that will last centuries. They are preparing to leave the galaxy entirely. What? The humans are planning to travel to other galaxies. They are developing faster-than-light technology that makes our hyperdrive look like a primitive steam engine. Within a generation, they will have the capability to cross intergalactic space. They are not hiding from us, Ambassador. They are leaving us behind. The communication ended and Velthar sat in silence, processing what he had learned. Humanity had not just withdrawn from galactic civilization. They had transcended the need for it. They were about to become something the Council could not match or even comprehend. His console chimed with an urgent alert. Another crisis was unfolding. The Scourge had launched their largest attack in recorded history, overwhelming defenses in the Theta sector. Dozens of worlds were under assault. Billions of lives were at risk. The Council military forces were scrambling to respond, but everyone knew they were insufficient. Desperate messages flooded the Council channels. Representatives were calling for humanity to intervene. Surely they would not stand by while entire civilizations died. Surely their moral code would compel them to act. For 3 days, the humans did nothing. The Scourge continued their advance. Colonies fell. The death toll climbed into the hundreds of millions. The Council forces fought bravely but were being systematically destroyed. It seemed the galaxy would learn the hard way that humanity's protection had been a gift, not an obligation. On the 4th day, human ships appeared. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. A fleet larger than anything humanity had ever revealed poured out of hyperspace. They did not communicate. They did not coordinate with Council forces. They simply began systematically destroying every Scourge vessel and station in the sector. Velthar watched the battlefields in awe. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, each vessel knowing exactly where every other vessel would be. Their weapons were devastating, far more powerful than anything the Council possessed. The Scourge, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, were being eradicated with clinical precision. Within 48 hours, it was over. The Scourge presence in the Theta sector had been completely eliminated. The human fleet had suffered 0 casualties. And then, as silently as they had arrived, the human ships began to withdraw. But before they left, something unprecedented happened. One human ship, larger than the others, broadcast a message on all frequencies. This time they used video. A human woman appeared on screens across the galaxy. She wore a simple white uniform with no insignia. Her expression was calm but carried a weight of sadness. People of the galaxy, I am Speaker Chen, representing the unified human civilization. We have intervened in this crisis not because we owe you anything, but because our principles demand it. We cannot stand by while innocent beings die when we have the power to prevent it. This has always been our way, and isolation has not changed who we are fundamentally. She paused, and her eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer. However, we want to be clear about our position. We did not act on behalf of the Galactic Council. We did not seek your permission or your gratitude. We acted according to our own moral compass, and we will continue to do so. When we see innocents in danger, we will protect them. When we see tyranny, we will oppose it. When we see suffering we can alleviate, we will act. But we will do these things on our terms. We will not return to the Council. We will not subject ourselves to your authority. We will not accept your attempts to control, limit, or manipulate us. We are done being your junior partners. We are done asking permission to exist. We are done accepting your judgment of our worth. Speaker Chen's expression softened slightly. We do not hate you. We are not your enemies. We simply recognize that we have different values and different visions for what civilization should be. You have chosen a path of hierarchy, competition, and expedience. We have chosen a path of equality, cooperation, and principle. These paths cannot be reconciled. We will watch the galaxy from our distance. We will act when our conscience demands it. But we will not engage diplomatically. We will not negotiate. We will not compromise our values for your convenience. You may see our ships, but you will not speak with our representatives. You may benefit from our actions, but you will not direct them. This is the new reality, and it is not subject to debate. The message ended with a final statement that sent shockwaves through every council chamber. To any individual being or species that shares our values and wishes to join us, you are welcome. Send a petition to the Sol system boundary. We will review each case individually. But know that joining us means accepting our principles absolutely. It means abandoning the Council system entirely. It means becoming part of something new. Consider carefully before you apply. The screen went dark, and the human fleet vanished into hyperspace. Within hours, the applications began arriving at the Sol system boundary. Millions of them. Individuals from every species. Young beings tired of the Council's endless politics and compromises. Entire small species. Those who felt powerless in the Council's hierarchy. All of them willing to abandon everything they knew for a chance to join humanity's new civilization. Velthar knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not just rejected the Council. They had offered an alternative. And that alternative was very, very appealing to those who had been disappointed by the existing order. The council was dying, and humanity's paradise was being born. The only question was how many species would have the courage to leave the old ways behind and join the humans in building something better. 5 years after the silence began, Ambassador Velthar stood in his private quarters aboard Unity Nexus, packing the few possessions he had accumulated over a lifetime of service. His 4 hands moved with practiced efficiency, but his mind was elsewhere, reviewing the chain of events that had led to this moment. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. 15 species had formally withdrawn, choosing instead to petition humanity for inclusion in what was now being called the Harmony Collective. Dozens more were in various stages of internal debate about whether to follow suit. Those species that remained in the council were divided into 2 camps. Some, like General Krathix and his militaristic allies, wanted to take aggressive action against humanity's growing influence. They called it a threat to galactic sovereignty. Others, like Dr. Mirathan and her supporters, argued that humanity was offering exactly what they had always offered, a better way, if only others were willing to learn. The debate had become irrelevant 3 months ago when the Yaran Confederacy, an entire interstellar nation of 4 billion beings, had collectively voted to abandon their council membership and join the Harmony Collective. Humanity had accepted them after a careful evaluation period. The Yaran now lived in massive habitat cylinders constructed in their home system, built by human engineering corps in a matter of months. Reports from Yaran space described a society transformed, poverty eliminated, conflicts resolved, technology advancing rapidly, but it was not the Yaran success story that had prompted Velthar's decision. It was something more personal. 3 weeks ago, he had received a message from an old friend. Dr. Sarah Chen, the last human ambassador to the council before the silence, had contacted him privately. She invited him to visit Sol System, not as a representative of the council, but as an individual interested in understanding what humanity had built. The council would see it as betrayal if he went. General Krathix had made it clear that any representative who showed sympathy toward humanity would be removed from their position. But Velthar had spent 5 years watching the galaxy deteriorate while humanity thrived. He needed to see for himself what they had achieved. He needed to understand if there was truly an alternative to the endless cycles of politics and compromise that defined council existence. He had submitted his resignation that morning. The response had been swift and predictable. The council accepted his resignation immediately and banned him from returning to Unity Nexus. He was now a private citizen, free to make his own choices. The freedom felt both terrifying and exhilarating. His transport departed from Unity Nexus that evening. As the station shrank behind him, Velthar felt as though he was leaving behind more than just a place. He was leaving behind a life, a career, everything he had known for over a century. The Kryn Collective had already disowned him. His family had ceased communication when he announced his intention to visit Sol. He was truly alone now. The journey to Sol System took 6 days. As his small ship approached the boundary, he transmitted the access code Sarah Chen had provided. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then a smooth, synthesized voice filled his cabin. Ambassador Velthar of the Kryn Collective, your petition to enter Sol System has been approved. Please follow the navigation beacon to Processing Station 7. Welcome to the Harmony Collective. The defense stations that had destroyed the Draxon Fleet 5 years ago remained silent and inactive as his ship crossed the boundary. A gentle navigation signal guided him toward one of the massive cylindrical structures orbiting Mars. As he drew closer, Velthar could see it in detail for the first time. The cylinder was 50 kilometers long and rotated slowly to provide gravity through centrifugal force. Transparent sections revealed glimpses of the interior: forests, lakes, cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. It was beautiful beyond anything he had imagined. His ship docked automatically, and he stepped out into a receiving area that took his breath away. The walls were living gardens, plants from dozens of worlds growing in harmonious arrangement. The air was perfectly balanced, comfortable for his physiology, and waiting for him, unchanged except for a few more lines around her eyes, was Sarah Chen. Ambassador Velthar, she said warmly, approaching with both hands extended in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for having the courage to come. I know what it cost you." Velthar grasped her hands with two of his own, the traditional Kryn response. "Dr. Chen, I confess I do not know why I am here except that I need to understand. The galaxy I knew is dying and you have built something new. I need to see if there is hope." Sarah smiled, a sad but genuine expression. "Come, let me show you what we have built. And please call me Sarah. Titles mean little here." She led him through the habitat, and with each step Velthar felt his understanding of civilization being challenged and remade. The cities they passed through were unlike anything he had seen. There were no slums, no poverty, no visible security forces. People moved with purpose and joy. Humans and members of other species who had joined the harmony mixed freely, working together on projects, sharing meals, raising children together. "How is this possible?" Velthar asked. "How do you maintain order without enforcement?" Sarah gestured to a small device behind her ear, barely visible beneath her hair. "The Harmony interface. Every sapient being who joins us receives one, carefully calibrated to their neural structure. It allows us to share emotions and intentions in real time, not thoughts exactly, but feelings. When you truly understand how your actions affect others, when you can feel their pain or their joy, it becomes almost impossible to harm them intentionally." It sounds like mind control. It is not. Everyone retains their individuality, their privacy, their ability to disagree. But imagine a society where lying is pointless because everyone can sense dishonesty, where theft is impossible because you would feel the victim's loss as if it were your own, where violence is unthinkable because you would experience the pain you inflict. That is what we have created. They visited schools where human children learned alongside young Yaren and members of other species. They visited research centers where scientists from different worlds collaborated on projects that seemed like science fiction. They visited art galleries where creativity from dozens of cultures merged into something entirely new. But it was a conversation with a former Yaren counselor that truly opened Velthar's eyes. The being, whose name translated as Dawnsinger, had been part of the Yaren government before their entire civilization joined humanity. "I was skeptical," Dawnsinger explained. They sat in a garden overlooking a manufactured lake that seemed to stretch to the horizon. "I thought we would lose our identity, our culture, our way of being. But I was wrong. The harmony does not erase who you are. It amplifies the best parts of every culture, while gently discouraging the worst. We still sing the songs of our ancestors. We still practice our traditions. But we do these things without fear, without want, without the conflicts that once divided us." "Do you miss the old way?" Velthar asked. Dawnsinger was quiet for a long moment. "I miss the comfort of familiar problems. I miss the simplicity of blaming others for our struggles. But I do not miss the reality of those problems and struggles. Here my children will never know hunger. They will never fear violence. They will never wonder if they matter. Can you understand what that means to a parent?" That evening, Sarah took Velthar to a gathering she called a resonance circle. Thousands of beings, human and otherwise, sat in a vast amphitheater as the sun set over the manufactured horizon. As darkness fell, they began to sing. It was the song Commander Jigsaw had recorded years ago, but experiencing it in person was completely different. Velthar could feel it in his bones, in his blood, in the core of his being. It was not just sound. It was emotion made manifest. Joy, hope, determination, love, all woven together in perfect harmony. Sarah must have sensed his overwhelm. She leaned close and whispered, "This is what we wanted to share with the galaxy. Not domination, not control, but this. Unity without uniformity. Strength through genuine cooperation. Peace through mutual understanding. We tried to explain it for 200 years, but the Council only saw us as useful tools. So we built it for ourselves and invited anyone who truly wanted it to join us." After the resonance circle ended, Velthar walked alone through the habitat's gardens. His mind was in turmoil. Everything he had believed about civilization, about governance, about the necessity of hierarchy and competition, was being challenged. He found a quiet spot and sat, staring up at the artificial sky where stars slowly appeared. His thoughts drifted to the Galactic Council, to the colleagues he had left behind, to the system he had served for so long. It seemed so small now, so limited in its vision. His communicator chimed. It was Dr. Mira then, calling from Unity Nexus. "Velthar, I heard about your visit. I wanted to check on you before I lose the ability to do so." "What do you mean?" I have submitted my resignation as well. I am joining you in Sol System. I cannot continue to serve a council that refuses to learn, refuses to grow, refuses to admit it was wrong. I am too old to waste the rest of my life on a dying system when something better exists. Velthar felt tears forming in his eyes, a very human expression of emotion he had learned years ago. I am glad you are coming. I was beginning to feel very alone. You are not alone, old friend. 27 other representatives have resigned in the past week. We are all making our way to Sol. The council is hemorrhaging everyone with the vision to see what humanity has accomplished. They talked for a while longer, and after the call ended, Velthar sat in the garden thinking about the future. The galaxy was splitting into two visions of civilization, the old way represented by the council, competitive, hierarchical, expedient, and the new way, represented by the harmony, cooperative, egalitarian, principled. He knew which vision would ultimately triumph. It was not the one with the most firepower or the cleverest politicians. It was the one that made people genuinely happy, genuinely fulfilled, genuinely hopeful about the future. 3 days later, Velthar stood in a medical facility, preparing to receive the Harmony interface. Sarah Chen was there, along with several other former council representatives who had made the same choice. "Are you certain?" Sarah asked. "Once you do this, there is no going back. You will become part of something that the council can never accept. You will be transformed."